So by now, everyone's probably already heard that TikTok is on the verge of a ban in the US. We had a scare a while back that TikTok was going to get banned, but then they appealed the decision, and it seemed, at least for the time being, that TikTok was going to survive. TikTok was going to be okay. But it was recently announced that the appeal was denied, and it's looking like the app will be banned coming January 19th of 2025. This ban has caused a lot of concerns for all users of TikTok, but there is one specific side of the platform that I want to discuss today. Because if TikTok gets banned, what happens to Booktok? So without further ado, hello. Welcome back. It is a new day, a new sleigh, and a new video where I have something to say. And today we're going to talk about what the TikTok ban means for Booktok. First, I'm going to briefly go over what the TikTok ban is exactly. This is very general of like just what you need to understand before you go into this video. You don't want to hear what I have to say about this ban. So I'm gonna keep it general. I'm gonna keep it brief. So the reason TikTok is being banned in the US is because the parent company is ByteDance, which is a Chinese-owned company. Lawmakers are concerned that the parent company will take user data from TikTok, sell it to the Chinese government, and then use the platform to spread propaganda. President Biden is requiring that TikTok be sold away to a non-Chinese owned parent company in order for the app to not get banned. Now, TikTok initially appealed this decision, citing that it was a violation of the freedom of speech, but the courts essentially decided that the threat to national security is greater than the freedom of speech. So therefore, the TikTok ban will hold up. And the problem is that the parent company ByteDance has already stated that they would not sell TikTok. So a lot of content creators and in general users of TikTok are already planning their backups and other ways that their audience can then follow their content off of that platform. Because hey, dance challenges, reaction videos, people looking pretty on the internet, that kind of content will always survive on other platforms. Whether it's Instagram Reels, even YouTube Shorts, they will do fine. But there is a unique discussion to be had about how Booktok will then transfer to other platforms. Now, if you don't know, Booktok is a specific side of the TikTok community where these users will share book recommendations, do like bookshelf tours, things of that nature. All their content is surrounding books. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Kristen, you are a booktuber. Book content does exist on other platforms, which you're right, but you see, Booktok is very interesting. And I say interesting because it's credited as saving the publishing industry. And I know that sounds crazy. Most of us know Booktok as a great place to get recommended smut and the same two books over and over and over again. But all jokes aside, Booktok did play a great role in the evolution of the publishing industry, as well as changing the landscape for marketing practices, how authors interact with readers, and book sales. So in this part of the video, I will be breaking down how Booktok, quote unquote, saved the publishing industry, taking note of the specific benefits that have come up as a result of Booktok. And then following that, I will talk about what this will all mean once Booktok no longer exists. But first, let's take it back to 2020. You remember her, right? You know, stores shutting down, a global pandemic. Me personally, I was working in a grocery store having people doing a right in my face. It was beautiful. And by beautiful, I mean traumatizing to comprehend my own mortality at the ripe age of 19. Anyway, damn, I was 19? I'm 20. Oh, I don't want to think about that. Anyway, but there was another problem going on in the background, and that was people just weren't going to bookstores as often. Now, I want to be clear. It's not that people weren't reading as much back in 2020 or that people weren't reading at all. The publishing industry as a whole was not dying by any means during that time. The problem was that people just weren't buying books from traditional brick and mortar stores. Again, in 2020, those stores had to completely shut down. So the only way that people were able to access physical books was through Amazon. At the end of the day, Amazon is always the enemy of every single story. You see, the problem with Amazon is that their entire business model is underselling their competitors. So first, people were going to Amazon because it was the only way that they could purchase books, at least physical, that is. But of course, Amazon does have the Kindle, which I know is a big thing in the book community. I don't understand the Kindle. I don't know how it works. I've held one. I've tried. I don't like it. I don't like the Kindle because I don't think it's very user-friendly, A, and B, it's made by Amazon. So I would not get it for mainly that reason. But then after the pandemic, people still kept going to Amazon. And Amazon had been around for much longer prior to 2020. So they had been slowly driving these local bookstores out of business. Even bigger name brand bookstores like Barnes & Noble. So it was very gradual at first, but then of course it was exacerbated by the pandemic. But also in 2020 came the glorious creation quote unquote, of Booktok. Barnes & Noble reported a 14% gain in book sales in 2020. Again, the same year that Booktok started gaining traction. Booktok has done a lot of good for the publishing industry, and I think there are 4 main pros that we can look at when talking about Booktok and its impact on the publishing industry. First, it drove people to buy from traditional brick and mortar stores. I'm sorry, I didn't explain this earlier, but brick and mortar meaning like a physical store you walk into, you grab the book off the shelf and pay for it. Right? 2, it also allowed for more direct and curated book recommendations. 3, it allowed for more self-published authors and books to gain more mainstream attention. And 4, it cultivated more involved engagement between authors and readers directly. So first, let's talk in the language that everyone understands, the language that is most important to these businesses, and that is money. So as I already mentioned, Barnes & Noble did report an increase in their sales as a result of Booktok. And part of that is because Booktok sensationalized so many trends like bookshelf wealth, doing tours of all your books, book hauls, and eventually showing off things like sprayed or stenciled edged books. The platform sensationalized things like aesthetics, pushing content where people were showing off their collections and thus incentivizing people to go out and buy physical books. And popularizing aesthetics is not unique to Booktok. We've seen this on other sides of the platforms like organizational TikTok, people showing off their desk setups or their note-taking, how they study. Even things like outfit of the day take aesthetics and turn them into profit for companies, where now users are trying to fit into a certain vision. I want to look put together, so yes, I'm going to buy these clear containers and then buy labels, despite the fact that cereal, detergent, and hand soap all come in their own packages. It doesn't look cute, it doesn't look aesthetic, so I need to put it in something else. It's the same way with books. There is an allure to this kind of aesthetic where now people want to go out, put on a cute little outfit, sling a tote bag over their shoulder, hold an iced coffee with some kind of milk alternative in one hand and a brand new book in the other. So of course, going in person to buy things like hardcover books or special editions do get the most profit for these publishers. And now, as a result of Booktok, there has been a craze when it comes to stenciled and sprayed edged books. And if you'll notice, nowadays it feels like any book that's getting published has to have some kind of specialty item that goes with it. Whether it's, a foiled cover or a stenciled edge, sprayed edge, some kind of fan art included, or in general, other ways to kind of profit off of the aesthetics that people on Booktok crave. A great example of this is with Alex Aster, who I'll talk about, kind of frequently in this video, just because when I personally think about Booktok, it's kind of impossible not to talk about her. I'll talk more about her backstory, but she is coming out with a new adult romance book, and she announced that they are releasing 4 special editions of that book, and they all have different covers and some kind of special edge on the book that are all exclusive to different retailers, which I think is just a prime example of how publishers are taking note of Booktok and really paying attention to the things that are trending in order to appeal to the consumer and of course get profit, which I don't think is necessarily bad. Would I look at someone kind of funny if they got all 4 different versions despite it literally being the same book? Maybe. Actually, yes. I would look at you differently. This isn't new, this isn't unique. I mean, I'm a K-pop girly. I know all about getting the same album with different concepts and just like having a different colored cover on the outside. We've been doing it in K-pop for years. So this, I clocked it immediately. I was like, absolutely not. Even in my K-pop album collection, where you can kind of get a glimpse of down here, I only have one. No, actually, I'm such a filthy liar. I do have a few different versions of the same. I'm a filthy liar. I'm so sorry. But I fell victim to that like collector mentality when I was still in my early 20s. I mean, I guess I still am. I'm 23. What can I say? 22, the person I was at 22 is so different to the person I am at 23. But yeah, I fear that Booktok is kind of going down this dangerous path of like being collectors. I've seen so many people have the literal same book, but just different editions of it. And that is a whole other thing I could talk about in and of itself and why I don't like that. But that is one of the ways that Booktok is allowing for these publishers to profit off of us users. And now moving a little bit away from this like money talk, profit, things like that. Now I'm going to go into recommendations on Booktok. So it does kind of relate to what I was talking about earlier, and that's just because the publishing industry is dominated by reader reviews. Having a good rating on Goodreads is essential, quote unquote, at least in a business perspective, to having a successful launch and securing further deals in the future. And although most of the content on Booktok is, again, just aesthetics and trends, there is another main form of content, and that is making book recommendations. And I think part of the success of these book recommendations is in part due to the TikTok algorithm. I think you could ask any major content creator, anyone that uses TikTok really, their algorithm is one of the best among social media platforms. And I say best in terms of not only does it give you content that you will typically engage with, these are the people that you follow, the kind of content you like to consume, but it also has a way of introducing you to different users and branching off into other separate sectors of the same content you like to consume. Again, I'm on Booktok, so yeah, I get book reviews and recommendations from a lot of bigger accounts, but I also get the odd video from smaller creators and, videos that don't have like a million likes or a lot of views. The algorithm is made in such a way that it is relatively easy for anyone to view your content. Whereas I feel like on platforms like YouTube or Instagram, it really favors the creators that already have a following. So if you are a smaller account, it's harder for you to kind of get out there and break into the mainstream. It just takes longer and it requires you to really build a core fan base in order for your content to continue building. Like my first video that really blew up on YouTube, which was my review of The Selection, truly lightning in a bottle. I have no idea why so many people watched that video. I mean, like, thank you. Like, really, I could not have dreamed of getting here if it were not for that video, but I could not even begin to tell you why it blew up the way it did. Because prior to that, like, the max view count I was getting on a video was like 50, maybe the odd 100. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, 16,000 views. YouTube really favors consistency. When you upload on a pretty good schedule and you have like a good rhythm, it will reward you for doing so. But TikTok doesn't necessarily have that same formatting. You really could upload every now and then and you would go viral. That's really just in my experience as a content creator. I have no idea how other people feel about the platform. I feel it is very easy to kind of navigate and interact with a lot of different people and get your content out to as many people as possible. Now, for recommendations, the algorithm allows for you to not only make these recommendations, but get them out to literally anyone and everyone in the Booktok space. Of course, BookTube, Bookstagram, those platforms exist and people do make recommendations on those platforms. I mean, case in point, me. But I think the way that those kinds of videos get recommended to users is just not as efficient as it is for TikTok. The TikTok algorithm allows for these kinds of book recommendation videos to get to a much wider audience compared to BookTube or Bookstagram. And you get more diverse recommendations. In theory, I know me personally, it took quite a while to train my For You page that, no, I don't want to read Fourth Wing or ACOTAR for the millionth time. I have no desire to read those books ever. Does it still try to recommend them to me? Absolutely. And now I do get more recommendations from authors of color and just in general, more diverse stories, which is great for me. But I have definitely been influenced based on recommendations off Booktok. I have picked up books that I knew were popular on the platform. Blood at the Root, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, Immortal Dark were all books that blew up on the platform and books that I read because they were big on the platform. You know what? For Immortal Dark, I knew about it before I heard about it on Booktok. And I specifically was like, I don't want to read this book because I didn't like the cover. I don't know if that's controversial. And I think the UK cover is a lot better than the US one. I don't know, something about the color and then the hand holding the castle. I don't know. It looked weird to me. And then it also looked like fuzzy quality, if that makes sense. It looked like something I could find in Tumblr in 2014. But then I saw a book where they were like, oh, it's black vampires, like dark academia. And I was like, oh, I like those things. I will probably like the book. Someone is calling me now. Grandma, she said hi. I'm sorry. You have to understand. I simply cannot ignore a call from my grandmother. So these recommendations from Booktok allow people to engage with books that they wouldn't normally, especially if things like the way that the cover looks or, the back of the book summary is not engaging enough. Having an actual person tell you, hey, this is what this book is about, is much more engaging and enticing for someone to pick up that book. And of course, because it is short form content, it is more direct, to the point, and is able to grasp your attention in a way that maybe a long form video would not. Moving on to my next point, which is all about self-published books. So self-publishing is not a new concept. It is definitely not something that was created in 2020. But what we're seeing in emergence with Booktok is that people are more inclined to self-publish. And there has been this stigma for a very long time that you cannot succeed if you don't have a traditionally published book. And so many people are saying, that. I'm just going to publish my own book, especially because more often than not, there is a barrier within the publishing industry where authors have to convince them that there is an audience for the story that they want to write. And this barrier, more often than not, is disproportionately affecting writers of color and other diverse voices from getting their stories into the mainstream. So instead of trying to convince these publishers that, yes, people will read a book where the protagonist is not white, able-bodied, cis, straight, they are instead just publishing their own books. And with Booktok, as we're seeing, a lot of these self-published books are able to make it into the mainstream. There's so many success stories where people start off as self-published, but then they get picked up by traditional publishers. And that is because they gain traction on Booktok. They build a fan base and people start blowing up these books. A not great example, but an example nonetheless, is Piper CJ. There's a whole thing about her that you can find on Booktok, but essentially she started by self-publishing her book, gained traction, gained a fan base truly for this book, and it then got traditionally published through source books. And the most important factor, and the reason that Booktok plays such a big role, is because by creating this content talking about these books, these authors are able to build a fan base, which also kind of goes hand in hand with my fourth point in this video. And that being that with the emergence of Booktok, authors are now in their own rights influencers. And now we get to the best and biggest example of an author that has completely changed the landscape for publishing and marketing as a result of Booktok. And this person is Alex Aster. Now, Alex Aster, if you don't know, is an author, and most famously, she published Lightlark. Now, the reason that she is credited with having changed the landscape so drastically is because she did go the traditional publishing route. Unfortunately, her first book that she published was in the year of 2020. So she was a debut author and then published her book in the middle of a pandemic. So it didn't do great as you would expect. So she started working on Lightlark. She got a lot of no's from publishers, and eventually she kind of got fed up and she turned to TikTok. She made a video and said, "Would you read a book that was about A, B, and C?" And she explained the plot. She put some pictures, posted it on TikTok, and it blew up. That video has millions of views on it. And as a result, she was able to take that video, take her story, go to publishers and say, there is an audience for this book I want to write. So whether or not you like Lightlark or Alex Aster as a person, we cannot deny the impact that she's had on the publishing industry, the way that marketing plans are created, and how authors are marketing themselves to readers. I mean, Alex Aster directly involves her fans in so many of the processes that come with publishing. She had her fans pick the cover of Lightlark. It was such an involved process that not only did she gain attention and people wanting to read her book, but she gained a dedicated fan base where these people will, no matter what, buy whatever book she publishes. And part of that success is because she is just like a really nice person. I did read Lightlark. It's not my favorite book, but I did have an opportunity to talk with Alex Aster. I met her at a book signing, and I don't know too much about her or why people might not like her, but she is just very genuinely a very nice person. Like, she had such an engaged conversation with me in a way that I've never had at any other book signing I've been to. And I haven't been to many, and there are authors that like will talk to you and kind of like make that conversation and they're very nice about it. But I've seen so many other authors and been to their book signings where it's literally just, "Hi, what's your name?" There. She had such an involved conversation with me and like was actually engaging. Making eye contact, that was scary for me. I'm very bad at making eye contact. But it was in that moment when I talked to her where I was like, I get why you have a fan base. I get why you have millions of followers. That's enough of me gushing about someone I don't actually no. Anyway, sorry. So how does this relate to other authors and book talk in general? Because of her success and her publishing of Lightlark, as a result of people wanting to read that book and showing their appreciation on TikTok, authors now have to be influencers in their own right. They are now in charge of creating their own marketing content, engaging directly with readers and fans, and creating that following, that fan base, where these people will go out and buy your book. And of course, there are authors that don't have to resort to these methods, but these are the ones that already have a name for themselves in the industry. Suzanne Collins does not need to go on TikTok and make a video about, would you read a book about 24 kids in a battle royale scenario? No, she doesn't need to do that. But more often than not, debut authors and otherwise smaller authors, the people that don't have a major following or don't have a lot of notoriety, so to say, these are the kinds of people that would then have to turn to Booktok in order to market their books. This way, they can engage directly with readers and encourage them to read their books. They really feed into that parasocial relationship between the reader and the author, where now you're not just buying a book for the story, you're also investing in the person behind it. I know me personally, I've picked up a lot of books from authors that I know support Palestine. If they are outspoken about the same issues that I am more inclined to read their books and support them as people. Honestly, Booktok really has become like K-pop. Like, people will defend their faves no matter what. They will line up to buy the book, all versions, all the special editions, no matter what. The K-popification of Booktok is real. And by also engaging directly with the readers, they can also make use of the TikTok shop. I hate the TikTok shop with a fiery passion. I get that so many self-published or smaller authors will sell their books through the TikTok shop, and wonderful. Get your bag. I hate the ads. I hate the ads. Oh my God. Because I will like one video, one singular post where it's an author of color marketing their self-published book. And I'm like, you know what? Like, good job. Good on you. Congratulations. And then all of a sudden, every single post is an ad. I want to support authors. I really, really do. But then the TikTok algorithm sees that I like one post with a link to the shop, and suddenly they think they can sell me anything. Obviously, the TikTok shop selling directly to the readers in a way that is so easy, you don't even have to leave the app, is another way that book sales get generated. So with all that in mind, we now have to ask the question, what happens to Booktok? Now that the app could potentially, very likely get banned, what does that mean for the platform? What does that mean for the publishing industry? I've already outlined so many ways that that one side of the platform has changed the landscape, increased sales, done so much good for readers, authors, publishers everywhere. Does that good go away now that TikTok is getting banned? We have to remember that there was a time before TikTok existed, when I was a wee little lad, when I was in my teens. Booktube was what dominated the book industry. Booktube even had a table at VidCon one year. That's how big they used to be. There is no doubt that Booktok is such a unique space on the internet, and I don't think it could be replicated on any one social media platform. I think Booktube is great at giving book recommendations. There are plenty of videos like book hauls, monthly wrap-ups, yearly wrap-ups. There's even ranking videos, and those are very easy ways that you can still get your book recs. Of course, the difference being that Booktube is more long-form content, although with shorts, I mean, maybe it could be replicated in a similar way to Booktok. I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with shorts. I think for shorts, it's really hard to try to convince that algorithm that you like something else. If you like a singular clip from House MD, they think you only like House MD. You will not get recommended anything else. They will only feed you what you are proven to like. But I think personally, these long form videos are more transparent than Booktok recommendations because you only have 60 seconds to kind of talk about the book and recommend it, give your rating or whatever. It's just not as transparent about what you're gonna get into when you pick up that book. I've been getting so many recommendations for this book, lights out. It is a dark romance, and people were saying, oh, the main guy is a cutie patootie. I think you'll like it. I listened to the voice actor and I was like, maybe I will read it. Someone posted a clip of the trigger warning at the beginning of that book. Imagine my surprise and horror when I hear unintentional cannibalism and desecration of a body. It brought tears to my eyes to hear the trigger warning. And someone said he's a cutie patootie. Whoever recommended that book to me, you're done. You're done. Go to the corner. I know that if I looked on Booktube, someone would have been honest with me. You cannot lie in a 20-minute video. You're gonna have to talk about it at some point. You can lie in a TikTok. I don't think you can lie in a YouTube video. On another note, on a lighter note rather, I think Booktube is also great for analyses and breakdowns of books. And personally, I really do enjoy long form content. I like the video essay. I like to hear people yap about that kind of stuff, especially when it comes to a book that requires a little bit of nuance. And of course, I'm on Booktube. So why would you go anywhere else? I'm here. I fill the gap. And of course, I think Bookstagram could very easily fill that aesthetics gap. Their algorithm is all kinds of whack, but it is very aesthetic over there. So we do have these other social media platforms that can very easily fill in that vacancy if TikTok gets banned. But most importantly, even off TikTok, off of Booktok, we must continue to support bookstores. Yes, Booktok played an important role, but it didn't save bookstores. It was us. It was users. It was consumers. So now that TikTok could potentially be banned, don't default back to Amazon. Absolutely do not go back there. It's good to go to places like Barnes & Noble and other brick and mortar stores. It's better to go to your local and independently owned bookstores. But most of all, it's best that you continue reading no matter where you get your books from. Booktok, yes, drove profits and allowed for more authors to see success in their publishing, but the biggest benefit from Booktok is that it encouraged people to read. It reintroduced so many people back to their love of reading. Even if it was a little smutty, even if it wasn't the best quality books, people were still reading, and promoting that and encouraging that is always a net positive. And encouraging people to read isn't something that has to stop just because TikTok is getting banned. Continue to make content. Post a vlog of you going to the bookstore. Take a cute little selfie of you at the library picking up a little book. Share your current reads, your TBR on any social media platform that you like. You can even find friends on Goodreads. Do things like buddy read with someone. And you don't even have to buy books. I know this whole thing was about supporting bookstores and whatever, but there are other ways that you can do that. The reality is, not everyone can afford to buy books. Not everyone has that kind of access. You can go in person to your local libraries. You can use apps like Libby or even Libro FM if you want to support local bookstores. No matter how you do it, it's best to read. I've been shitting on Amazon, but if that is what's most accessible to you, then fine. That's okay. But for those of us like myself who are so privileged that we don't have to resort to Amazon, then we shouldn't. I want to reiterate that the publishing industry will not die without Booktok, but it will without the support of readers like us. Take this opportunity to explore new platforms, and in any way that you see fit, in any way that works best for you, continue to encourage reading. Because they're already banning TikTok, guys, and they're trying to ban books. We got problems on all fronts. The TikTok ban, we can live with. We can migrate to other platforms. Then we'll work on these book bans, but the best way to do that is just by reading, encouraging others to read. It doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be unenjoyable. You can pick up something on Wattpad. Crazy concept, I know. My biggest form of reading outside of like novels and books like these is Webtoon. I love Webtoon. I love it so much. That does constitute as reading, by the way. So there's no need to fear. Booktok may not exist, but book spaces will never cease. And with that, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you liked the video. Please be sure to give it a like. I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say. If you're worried about this TikTok ban, how it may be affecting the other spaces that you're involved in. You guys don't have to worry about the TikTok ban affecting me because you can find me here on YouTube. I am also on Instagram and Twitter. I know I haven't uploaded a lot of book reviews in a while, and that is just because daylight savings happened and I forgot how to be productive. So it's been really hard for me to like get through a book as of late, but right now I'm getting through Wicked. So that will be hopefully the next book I review on here. But on this channel, you can find book recommendations, reviews, breakdowns. I like to talk about a lot of the implications of some of these books. Sometimes we get a little serious, sometimes we get a little funny. Truly the one-stop shop for everything book related on this channel. So please be sure to subscribe, continue to watch my videos. Yeah. Thank you. Also, give me your book recommendations. I really like to hear what you guys recommend and what you are reading. I do have a list. I have a running list of book recommendations that people give me in the comments. I'm hoping to tackle that in 2025. It is a very long list. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. That is the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, yeah, that's it.